The construction approach to figure drawing is about taking the incredibly complex and nuanced human form, which is hard to draw, and turning it into simple shapes which are easy to draw and can be built up into a figure drawing. It's really helpful for the following reasons. It's easy to know how to start the drawing. Instead of the massive information that your eyes take in from the figure, all the little bumps, tones and distinctive features, you can start to see a few simple shapes instead and start with those. This allows you to build the figure while only having to handle manageable chunks at a time. Secondly, thinking in terms of shapes rather than human body parts helps you overcome the biggest challenge that beginners face, their brain's preconceptions. It can handle a foreshortened straight line or a cylinder or something like that much better than it can a foreshortened leg. Thirdly, you can get things in the right place before you add detail. If you've already drawn body parts in detail, it might be too late to start moving things around. And fourthly, you can get a sense of the most important patterns of light and dark on the figure. Instead of infinite gradients of tone across the figure, you have simple planes that are facing or not facing the light source. Now, construction isn't for everyone. For some people it may feel a little bit formulaic. Some people would prefer to just draw based on what they're observing and not build up a figure this way. But actually, construction is also just a way of observing a figure. It's just a way of simplifying all that data that we're taking in. So for you as a beginner, our recommendation would be to try this for now, to do these exercises and get used to them. Remember, we're trying to train our eye and tame our mind, and this is going to be really useful for that. There's many ways to approach construction, and you may end up developing your own preference. Here we outline ours, which we feel combines simplicity with usefulness. The approach differs a bit depending on what angle you're viewing the pose from. We like to base our construction process on visible landmarks, so that you can clearly see the lines and points on which to base your structure, rather than just having to imagine them. We don't also rely entirely on super simple shapes like cubes, cylinders and spheres. Sometimes those simplifications are too far from what you're seeing, and when you're still learning, they can actually confuse things a bit. So for the first stage of our construction, we're basically creating a really advanced stickman. Let's call it a super stickman. We're going to start with the head. We'll draw a simple shape like a pointed oval for now, just to get the head down. We'll do it with 2 or 3 simple lines that start at the top of the head and curl down to the chin. Mako here is using 3 lines, 1 across the top and then 2 curling around each side. There's many ways to do this. Don't panic about doing it the right way. These lines are just supposed to help you, not stress you out. We'll put on 2 dissecting lines around the head now. A center line right down the middle of the face, down the middle of the forehead, along the nose, through the middle of the mouth and to the tip of the chin. Then another running across the eyebrows to the tops of the ears, around the head. With just these 2 lines, it's clear which way the head is pointing. Next, we're going to draw in a V shape for the front of the neck. Can you see how people's necks usually have this V shape running around their throat? Pretty much from the bottom of the ears to the middle of the collarbones. We're just going to look at that V shape on the model's neck. It might be twisting to one side or the other, and we're just going to put that in for now. If you can't see it, don't worry about it too much. Put in what you can see. Now we're going to put in the center line of the front of the torso. Just lightly. We're going to have to fix all of this later. Now this line should start from the bottom of that V shape that we did for the neck. It's going to run down between the pectoral muscles, down the middle of the chest, down the sternum, the middle of the front of the rib cage where all the ribs meet, through the solar plexus, down the middle of the abs, through the belly button, all the way curving down to the groin, so just straight down the front of the torso. Now we're going to draw the line between the top tips of each shoulder. If you like, you can keep this straight, so just a straight line from the top edge of one shoulder to the other. But if you can, try to run it along the collarbones, which are usually visible and clear. These collarbones move and can become V-shaped themselves depending on what the model's doing, and it's useful to roughly get that shape in even at this early stage if you can see it. The collarbone lines will start at the bottom of the V-shape that we put in for the neck. Try feeling one of your own collarbones from that middle of the top of your chest and bottom of your neck along to the hard tip of the shoulder. If you're viewing the pose from the side, you might not see both shoulders. In this case, we have a different procedure for you in a later video. For now, we're really just talking about poses viewed from the front. If you can't see both shoulders in a pose because one of them's just covered up, for example by hair, then you can try to imagine where you think it is and make your line accordingly. Don't worry if it's wrong. Everything's going to be refined and corrected as we go. Next, we're going to put in the line between the tips of the pelvic bone. These are usually nice visible landmarks on any figure. Try feeling these bony bits on either side of the front of your waist, at the level a belt would be. Your line should run between those 2 points. You can do this as a straight line for now, or if you're feeling confident, do it along the curve of their waist. Imagine if the model was wearing a pair of underpants. Where would the top line of those underpants run? Often in standing poses, you'll notice that the line between the shoulders and the line between the tips of the pelvic bone counteract each other. If one is tipped one way, the other's often tipped the other way to help keep balance. Now we can add in lines for the legs. These will run from the ends of our line running across the waist down to the knees. Then another down to the ankle. And for the feet, you can put in a triangle placeholder or just a line to indicate the general direction for now. We can add similar lines for the arms, one from the shoulder down to the elbow, and then for the forearm running from the elbow to the wrist, and for the hands again a triangle placeholder or just a line running in the direction of the hand is enough for now. If you struggle to just draw in the lines of the arms or legs, maybe because they're in a tricky position, it might help you to first locate the hand or foot, and then the elbow or knee, and then connect them together. Now all these things are going to need to be adjusted. We're not going to stick to them. We'll correct them as we start to understand the pose more and more later in the drawing. It's interesting, but even though our eyes take in the pose instantly, it takes time to actually understand it. Your brain needs a bit of time to process the information, and as you get more experienced, your processing speeds will improve dramatically. For now, it's totally fine if these initial lines are a bit wrong. The drawing process for learners like us is to put down some wrong lines, learn to recognize that they're wrong, and then put down some lines closer to the truth and keep fixing the drawing until it looks right. Hey guys, thanks for watching this far. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube and to our newsletter at lovelifedrawing.com. That way you get regular figure drawing advice and support and guidance, and also we know if we're doing something useful and it kind of motivates us to do more. The first way we're going to practice is again with newspapers. We're going to draw straight on top of the photos in the sports section. This is just to get us used to drawing these lines without worrying too much about proportions and angles. Be careful not to be distracted by the lines of the clothes. Here, for example, I'm way off with my pelvic bone line because my eye was taken in by the line of the bottom of his shirt. It can be a little tricky since they're wearing shirts and some visible landmarks are covered. Generally though, we can still see all the points we need. Next, we're going to move away from the photo, but not too far. We're going to draw our stickman next to the photo, just over some text or on another part of the page. Let's try and keep the size kind of similar to the size of the photo for now. Most of the photos in the newspaper will be front views, so that's good for this lesson. We can draw directly on the photo before our attempt as well to help us with our stickman. Or we can draw it straight onto the photo after our attempt to give us something to compare to. Comparing the stickman that I have on the right to the one directly on the photo, I first noticed that the pelvic bone line that I'd used is wrong, it's tilting the wrong way. And then looking at the center line down the torso, my center line is leaning forwards a bit too much, and I've also got it too far to the left. I've tried to sort of put it in the middle of the figure, whereas actually it's off to the right a little bit. This is a nice little exercise you can add to the movement exercise we did in the previous module. Remember, it's good to use something like charcoal or pastel that makes strong lines on newspaper paper. So the last exercise we're going to do is just to draw our super stickmen from reference photos. And we should just do this on scrap paper because these aren't precious drawings, this is just training. Now that's it for this lesson. In the next lesson, we're going to start to work on the building blocks that we're going to use to add mass to our stickmen.